This video is supported by Central Oregon Radio, Central Oregon's #1 internet station. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the RangerRob Country Living Podcast and Homesteading. And we got a special guest today, and we're really excited. Before we get going, now I realize I can't see anybody, and that's better. And I wanted to make sure that you guys realize that this is a podcast. So if you want to catch the audio version of this, if you listen to podcasts, just make sure you can go into the search area, type in RangerRob Country Living Podcast. It'll show up, make us your favorites, and you can check out any of our 53 episodes now. So we're getting up there. And so, we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the main platforms. Just check us out that way. Also, you can find us syndicated on Central Oregon Radio. So to find Central Oregon Radio, just go to centraloregonradio.com. And there's several ways to listen to that radio station. But I think we play in the mornings at 9 o'clock in the morning. And so you can catch episodes from way back. So and so today we talked a good friend of mine into being on the podcast, and he was kicking and screaming, but I really whined on the phone really bad, like, come on please, and he showed up. So we got Steve Sparks. And Steve, can you say the name of your farm so I don't mispronounce it?
Our farm's name is Taktene Heritage Farm.
Yep. And you're
we're over in Harney County, out of Burns.
Mm-hmm. And he's got fine pigs, because I've got one from you, and I'm getting another one from you. So I'm very excited. So you specialize, the only kind of pigs you deal with is Idaho pasture pigs. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's all I have now. I have I grew up, my grandfather and my uncle had a pretty good sized hog farm.
Mm-hmm.
For a small farm. It's 60 to 70 sows they had. I grew up around that. Raised hogs most all of my life. But I quit raising when I started having kids. I quit raising breeders just because they're so unpredictable and dangerous. I didn't want breeding boars and breeding sows around. I got mauled when I was about 5 by a sow that just darn near tried to kill me. And for my grandfather being pretty quick with a 2x4, she would have got me. But I didn't want any of my kids getting hurt, so I stuck to just raising feeders for the period of time that my kids were little. Kids all gone down the road many years later, and I really wanted to be more self-sufficient like I used to be. With the age of the day and the way things are going, and started looking for pigs, and I was trying to decide what pigs I wanted. And of course, my old school ways, I looked at the ones that I knew about, and then this homesteading group on YouTube that I was kind of watching off and on, they jumped up and they started talking about Idaho pasture pigs, and that was Kevin and Sarah at Living Traditions. And thanks to them, I thought, I live almost in Idaho and I've never heard of these pigs. So I started researching them and absolutely fell in love with these pigs. They're amazing animals. And I've got my boar, he'll come out. I got a 4-year-old grandson that I can set up on my boar, and he can ride him around. He'll come up to the fence and rub the fence and holler at you to come pet him. And he just wants attention, and there's not a mean bone in their body. I've never had pigs before that when they were farrowing that you could just climb right in and talk to them and watch things without them just coming unglued. So, we've been in them now just about, 3 years now. And so we're fairly new to them, quite honestly. But we had, like I said, I have had pigs off and on my whole life. We were living just on the edge of town on about a little over an acre of ground, and I could see that this pig thing was going to get too big too quick. So we sold that, and we've bought 80 acres of bare ground. And so we're about 17, 18 miles out of town on 80 acres that was absolutely bare. It had a perimeter fence and a well, and lots of sagebrush.
Mm-hmm. So
So
I got a question for you. Is
you bet.
have you ever gone into a boar's pen after you pet a sow that's been in the heat? So I've never had Idaho pasture pigs are the greatest animals ever.
Yeah.
But the other day, Sherry was in one of the other paddocks and giving belly rubs to our sows that already had their piglets, right? So one of them was in heat, and so Sherry's doing the old rub the tummy and scratch the back and scratch the ears, and she was cleaning paddocks out, and so she went over to the next paddock where happened to be Sparky's, our boar, and so he comes over and visits like normal, but he kind of like acted a little different this time. And we couldn't figure out why because it got really pushy and really like, oh,
Yeah.
you smell so good.
Yeah.
And
You know,
Sherry had to kind of like dive over the fence because he was like really being pushy. And we
yeah.
couldn't figure that out until he goes, so lesson learned is don't pet a pig that's in heat and then go visit your boars.
Yeah, and that's probably good advice for just about anything bigger than a chicken.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That's the only.
but you know, a standard commercial hog like a Hampshire or a Berkshire or some of these others would have flat taken you down and stomped all over you or bit you or and
So true.
the IPPs didn't. And don't even think about going into the pens with mine from one to the next, and probably should, but uh, they are so gentle and so affectionate to people that they're just amazing. So we've gone from not having any to getting a breeding pair, and then getting this one from Jody, and then onto a larger piece of property, and we're developing that property. So it's going to be a couple of years before we get to where we want to go. But I want to. I've got some things in mind. I'm not going to let out of the bag now, but a direction that we're headed that I think is going to do the IPP a good deed for the whole country. So
That's great.
that's the
Awesome.
plan.
Yeah, well, I tell you one thing. I can tell you that I can't be happier than the relationship we've had with Steve. And one of the things that was pointed out, and I don't know who it came from, it might have come from Steve, but you have proven or shown to me how important it is to be a breeder. And being a breeder is more than just having good stock, of course, and good
Yes.
and a good farm. It's also being available to the people that you've sold your pigs to. And I think Caleb feels the same way that
Yes.
as a breeder, it's our job to follow up, be available, answer questions. No such thing as a dumb question, and everybody's situations are different. And just like before the show, and I want to talk about it in this too, we were talking about fencing, and I think all three of us, actually, yeah, all three of us do something different, and so.
Yeah.
And so it's great to always hear the feedback of the goods and the bad, pros and cons of everything. So I just want to compliment your farm and as a breeder and being available to me answer my questions whenever I've had them. He's only hung up on me 3 times. No, he's been awesome every time. And every time I call, I go, "I'm so sorry, Steve." And he goes, "No, I want you to call." He's been really good. And I want to be the same kind of breeders. I urge other breeders out there, guys, is if you're going to be a breeder, also make yourself available to the people you sell your pigs to. And so, yeah.
We as breeders have to set the standard. The IPP registry does set the breed standards, but we have to fulfill those, and we have to make sure that our pigs meet that quality, and that we educate the new people that are buying pigs from us what that quality is and how to judge it. We are their mentor, and so as a breeder, we need to hold ourselves to a pretty high standard in our pigs, and that's how the breed is going to develop and gain and become better and better.
I'm pretty sure people are from our videos and stuff like that, are just tired of hearing the fact that we're always talking about the IPP pigs, but I can't stop talking about them. They're just amazing. if you're ever going to try your first livestock, I'm telling you, IPP pig is the way to go,
Yeah.
and then
I
grow
agree.
from there. But what a great introduction to raising livestock for the
Yeah.
first time. And if you have
Oh,
children, that's
they're a kick and a half.
yeah. And the big thing is, if you got children, you're worried about them a little bit and stuff. They are pigs and they are big animals, but they're
Gentle
uh,
giants.
gentle giants. That's a good one. And I would feel much better with IPP pigs with my kids than anything else I've been witness to. So,
Yeah, me too.
and one of the things I want to also make sure we talk about is on our show today, we were talking about getting into. We haven't got frost yet. I don't know if you've got it over there in Burns yet.
Oh yeah.
You have.
It's colder over there in Burns, isn't it?
Our weather here in Burns is very, very similar to Siberia. and that's funny, but it's not a joke. It really is.
Oh, we one of the things that came up is I always ask the panel here, and of course I forgot to introduce you guys. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We're just them.
Yeah. So of course we have John and Debbie from the Hobby Pig Homestead and Aimee from DragonFly Farms. I apologize for.
Hi, everybody on the comments.
Yeah. And Sherry's out and about, so I think she's watching our show from
Yep.
this.
I
think
see
she's
her on there.
I think she went to go see her mom tonight. So, because she picks the podcast night because she knows I'm in the studio. So, but our subject matter was we're starting, or at least Steve is starting the frost and winter time, and Debbie made some really interesting comments yesterday when I was looking for subjects. She wanted to talk about frost and the fact that we're getting into freezing temperatures. Do we, or are we, or what is people doing to make sure our pigs and livestock, beyond pigs too, are comfortable through the wintertime? And Steve, you actually get much colder than we do, and so you would probably have some really good answers on this. But do you do anything different or unusual to protect the pigs from colder weather?
Well, we use the A-frames style of hut for them, and during the winter we enclose the back wall. We leave the front wide open, but we enclose a back wall. That way they have 3 walls and they can get out of the wind. And then we bed with straw fairly heavily, so they have bedding. And these pigs, they actually do very well in cold weather. Mine absolutely love the snow. My boar, when he was younger, he would run outside in the snow and roll up snowballs and throw them in the air with his nose. Hilarious, but they do well they do very good in the cold. You've got to keep them fresh water is always all the things that make them healthy anytime keeps them healthy during the winter. Just trying to keep them out of that wind. If you can keep them out of the wind and have some warm bedding, these pigs will do great.
Do you like give them warm food during the winter?
I don't.
No, not at all.
No, no, mine aren't pampered
I
at
confess.
all. They're
I'm gonna confess right now. I did it this morning.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
So what I did is some of the squash that Rob gave me, I boiled that down in the liquid I froze.
Uh-huh.
And so now I heated it up and take it out to them, and I put their food in that and give it to them, so they're getting their water and they're getting warm food in the morning.
And that doesn't hurt a thing. That's good. That's good for them. I just, I'm just an old ranch kid, and we slop the hogs on a run and go do something else.
Yeah, but Debbie puts all the food on china and gives them utensils too.
That was for the Cooney Coons, my first kids. I confess, I cooked their food.
I can my own dog food just out of necessity of economics.
Yeah.
have some old meat or something in the freezer, and we've got a recipe for dog food, and we can that up. And the dogs think they've died and gone to heaven when Dad gets into the canned food.
Well, see, my pigs do too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they love it. And it's good to soak your feed.
This morning.
Yeah. If you soak their feed,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's grains or whatever, and let them soak for about 3 days, if you can do that and let them ferment a little bit, they'll get much more nutrition out of it. And that's a good thing to do during the winter. It's a good thing to do all the time.
Is that just for the grain, like the corn, barley, and that kind of stuff? Or can you do that with the alfalfa pellets? Because that turns into mush.
It does, but my pigs like the alfalfa pellets once they've gone to mush. They don't like them when they're hard. So it's the last thing.
I don't want to spoil my pigs at all,
No.
Yeah.
I have a question about wallows in the winter. At what point in the weather do you need to stop having a wallow, or do you have to keep it all year round and go out there and break the ice? And
No, the pigs do well with cold temperatures. They don't do well with the hot. That's why they need a wallow. Is when the temperatures get warm, anything above 75 degrees, they need to have a place to go cool off a little bit, get out of the sun, get some mud on them to keep that sun off of them. But when it gets cold, they really don't want the wallow. They're not interested in it at all. Yeah. So when it gets, when things start getting hard and the water starts turning to ice, forget the wallow.
Probably about 2 weeks, Aimee.
Yeah, give it a week or two. You'll be there. 5 years ago, I looked back on our on Facebook, they give you, 5 years ago today, we had 2 inches of snow here.
Wow, already?
That's what
yeah. That was 5 years ago. Thank goodness we were 77 today.
Yeah. Is there what kind of techniques do you use for frozen water or preventing from getting frozen water?
Summer. I'm in the process of building a system right now that I think is going to eliminate that problem. The hardest thing, what I normally do, my default is pack water and put it in small rubber tubs for them to drink out of, and that way you just take a bucket of water down and fill the feeders and the waterers, and they drink that day, and you go back and flip the ice out of it when it freezes and fill them back up. I'm retired, so I'm here all day long. So if you are working, that's tough. But I am working on a system that is going to involve a pit greenhouse. So a 5 feet in the ground, 5-6 feet deep greenhouse in the ground with an angled roof over it, and an IBC container full of water, and then underground lines ran with a water pump to frost-free hydrants that I am designing and building that will have nipples on them, and a heated water system.
Sign me up.
I've been working on this in my head and on paper for about 2 years, and I've got the backhoe sitting outside right now, and we're digging water lines. So we're going to try to do some videos, and we'll get those to you so you can see them.
Good.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a great idea.
We can go 5 feet down.
We can't go 5 feet down.
Some of those places are solid rock.
Is what, 3 feet, I think?
Yeah, about 3 feet under.
Well, and so what you can do in a situation like that is dig as deep as you can, and then build like a straw bale wall up a couple of feet, and then put your
or earth bags.
Earth bags are great. I'm kind of stuck in the straw bale thing because I've been researching for over 20 years of straw bale homes, and we're going to build one out here. So
that's cool.
So before I forget, I wanted to give a shout out to Laura at it's Throne Grown Family Farm. Yeah. I just met her for the first time today on the phone and stuff, and they're in Washington State, really close to us. and had a great conversation. And once again, it's a great reference that I've heard nothing but good things about her through Caleb
people.
and everybody else. And so I just want to give a shout out to Washington State Idaho Pasture Pig Breeding Farm up in, and they're up in, I hope I pronounced this right.
Yakima.
Well, they're by Yakima. I want to say Selah, Selah. It's just outside of Yakima. Anyway, so it gives you an idea. They're up a little more north of us, but they're still eastern Washington, just like we are. And and I guess I want to bring now. I got Steve here. I mean, everybody here is high desert area, right? And so I when I talk to Caleb, and I love Caleb, he's been so he's been on our show. He's just been wonderful and stuff. But you know, obviously these are pasture pigs, and I think one of the biggest messages I want to make sure and put out is just because they're Idaho pasture pigs doesn't necessarily mean you don't have grazing property. You don't have the grass. Now, in our situation, we're actually doing permaculture, and we're creating fields with grass, and we're actually letting the pigs help develop the property for that. But I guess I want to make sure is let people know that no matter what region you're in, the Idaho pasture pigs are a very hardy pig. But the other thing is to supplement them with with hay and with alfalfa and some of the other things that are out there, fod, things like that. You can get the same kind of nutrients that Idaho pasture pig needs on top of the regular grains and stuff to be just as efficient as a pig, as like a farm that's loaded with big pastures, grassy pastures. So sometimes I feel like that we send that signal that all these guys love to graze, and they do, but it's not their primary diet. And so how do you feel about that, Steve?
Well, yeah, exactly. The pigs will do well in we prefer something about a 30 by 50, 30 by 80 pen, give them a little room. But they'll actually, I've had a couple of them in a 30 by 30 pen, just out of necessity, and they don't complain as long as they get fed regular. We try to get these pigs a little more of the grass in whatever form, like you said, either a fodder or hay or alfalfa pellets or whatever, more so that than grain. Your commercial hogs are purely grain fed. And I don't know, most of us are old enough, Aimee's not, but most of us are old enough to remember back when Grandpa raised hogs on the farm and the meat was a nice red. And then they started pushing the low fat diets. Everything's got to be low fat. And then pork became what? The other white meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not right.
And they ruined it in the 70s.
I agree.
To be the other white meat. And they did that by pushing the high protein feeds and confinement and no exercise, no chance for them to marble, no chance, that marbling and that meat develops over time. So we're pushing and condensing these commercial hogs into a 6-month, if that, time period from birth to butcher. The Idaho pasture pig, being more of a grass-fed pig, they actually develop their meat a little slower. They get a lot less grain. When I had commercial hogs, they were eating 8 and 10 pounds a day at the end. Idaho pasture pig doesn't really need over 3.5 to 4 pounds, 3 to 4 pounds somewhere a day is all they really need of a grain.
Ours goes through his hay a lot.
Yeah.
They'd rather have the hay than the pellets, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I feed hay year round because I live in the high desert, and if we have grass, it's only for 3 days.
Yeah, if we're lucky.
We don't have any.
We're actually developing some pastures out here. I've got 6 acres that my beautiful wife is mowing with our tractor we can turn into some pastures, paddocks. and we're going to try to get some orchard grass and some timothy and some stuff growing out here that'll grow in our area. It's going to be sparse. It's not going to be the green, lush pastures that you see in the Willamette Valley or in Wisconsin.
Yard.
Yeah, around the world, you don't see those, but it'll be good for what we can do. But these pigs are very adaptable, and yeah, they'll do well in just about any situation as long as you're giving them the choices of the grass and the alfalfa. And like I say, I kind of hand feed mine their hay, and they get their grain as a treat. And I consider, and I tell people that the grain, I consider that their daily dose of vitamins with the minerals added to them. And that's kind of that kind of keeps their gut health good to have something other than just the grain. But the main substance that they need to be eating is grass of some form. If you can do a fodder system, that is wonderful. That gives them a lush green growing fodder. But dry hay, they do well on it. They do very well.
I don't know if you have junipers out there.
Oh, yeah.
Give them juniper branches. They love them.
Yeah. We'll have to do that. We don't have them like you do. In fact, from where I'm sitting with a pair of binoculars, I can't see a juniper tree. But we have sagebrush, and they don't seem to like it.
So I had an interesting comment from Caleb, actually. He was asking if our pigs have any type of sage taste to their meat.
No.
And, anyway, so I told him ours did not. Ours was
Ours
wonderful.
didn't
But
either.
I told him, well, maybe you want to talk to Steve because he's more east than we are. But I just don't see the pigs aren't interested in sage at all.
No, my pigs won't touch it. Now, my mules, they love the stupid stuff. They'll stand there and chew on the fresh sage, but not the pigs.
There's also another question on here too about soaking the feed in the wintertime. You can also do that in the summertime too.
Oh yes, I would.
All year long.
I would do it year round. Absolutely. And if you have your homestead has a milk cow, you'll have extra milk.
No, Aimee.
Aimee needs a milk cow.
I have a milk cow, and John. Everybody comes and gets my milk, so John is saying he does not want any extra milk going to the pig. John,
well, what all do you do with your milk?
They love it.
Do you make cheese or butter, or you do?
Yeah, we do butter and yogurt. We sell quite a lot of it. And,
what do you do with your leftover whey?
Now the whey, I could give that when I do the cheese.
They absolutely love it. You soak your grain with whey, and that is a very probiotic nutritional feed.
Awesome. Yeah.
Very good.
So before I do forget, because I learned this from you, Steve, is when it comes to minerals, you were talking about you told me to get the next gen, which was a nightmare to get, by the way.
Yes, it was. It became terrible.
But I got it now. But is there any other kind of minerals that you're introducing to your pigs?
I'm using Andrew Foster over in Kuna, Idaho. Got with Big D Ranch Feeds, and Christy Kearns was involved with that, and they developed through OSHU, OSU, not OHSU, that's the hospital, but OSU. They developed a properly mineralized pasture pig feed. And so they now sell that out of Meridian, Idaho. And we drive monthly the 3 hours to go get it and 3 hours to come home to get our feed. And we do that. And I just use their minerals that they put in it. And that's what I did before. And I started buying the next gen. They made it very easy to get. And then, everything went crazy and was hard to get. And the prices went up and the delivery was hard. And I think you waited for 6 months for your bag, didn't you, Rob?
It took forever. I think it got lost. I don't know what happened. But I finally got it. But Which
But
you actually you hit on a question I know John's going to probably end up asking is you say you're going up north to get your feed. Are you buying bulk up there?
I do. Yeah, we buy either half-ton or 1-ton bags at a
Uh-huh.
time. We get a discount that way, and they it's just downright cheaper. Here, our local feed store, I haven't bought feed at it for a while, and I walked by just thinking I might just grab a bag real quick, and their hog grower is $27 a 50-pound bag.
Yeah.
I'm paying 13,
Wow.
So is that
and it's real
worth
grain.
the 3-hour drive with the gas
Absolutely.
prices?
Yep. No,
Doesn't
it is.
break even?
It's actually cheaper.
Wow.
I pick up feed for other people too, and then I make them pay me a little bit of fuel money.
Well, yeah.
And where are you getting your? Because we're not that. I mean, we're in Oregon. All of us are.
Yeah, well, it's in Idaho. It's in
Uh-huh.
Meridian, Idaho, just out of Boise.
Gotcha.
It's Big D Ranch Feeds, Ranch Supply,
Interesting.
Ranch Feed. Yeah,
Wow.
wonderful people to work with, and they've got an outstanding product.
Yeah,
Nice.
we're having a hard time finding
Bulk.
someone that sells it bulk like that over here.
Yeah, I imagine. When I used to live over in the Canby, West Lynn area, that's where I grew up at, over in the valley.
Mhm.
And we had a couple of feed stores over there that Fisher's Mill and
I know where Fisher's Mill is.
yeah,
I know where that one is.
I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, and that's the one I went to the most.
Are they still open?
Union.
Oh, the one in
Union
Malala?
Union Mills.
Oh,
Yeah.
Union Mill.
Yeah, just outside of Molalla, between Molalla and Oregon City, out there in the Maxburg area.
Beaver Creek, out there
Yep,
by Beaver
that-
Creek.
that-
I want to kind of follow up on this is John Smith. He was asking if their diet affects their IPP pigs meat flavor, because we kind of touched on the sage a little bit, but in different regions of the country or nation, is that an issue at all, or have
Yes,
you heard anything like
it sure can be. I got the opportunity to go over to the Philippines a few times, and one place the two brothers owned a fish store, and the brothers did some fishing and quite a bit, and they supplemented their hogs feed with fish, and that pork tasted fishy. So
It doesn't sound good at all.
no, it wasn't that good.
They
But
had to feed them a lot of it to get that flavor into them, though.
you would think so, but yeah, you can change the flavor of the meat by what you give them. There are several things that I've been told. I've never had an issue with that, but I stick pretty much to the regular, the hay and the grain, and kind of watch. I don't like to feed them chicken or kitchen scraps. I don't care to do that. It softens the meat, and I think you can get kind of a poor quality of meat by feeding a lot of chicken scraps. And we really recommend not feeding them any meat scraps at all. Meat's a no-no for the pigs. Even
Yeah,
cooked.
we don't feed them a lot of kitchen scraps either.
Yeah,
And
I
fruit
usually
vegetables.
send my
Fruit
chicken.
and vegetables.
What's that?
Fruit and vegetables.
Yeah. We give our chickens most of our kitchen scraps and our ducks, but we try not to do much with the pigs. They get some special treats like pumpkins and things like that, and cucumbers and zucchinis and things, garden treats. But for as far as leftover kitchen scraps, I think it gives you a poorer quality.
Interesting.
Great.
And what's
So,
the
I
reason
wanna make sure
behind
you-
not? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to ask the reason why not to give them the meat, just because it affects the meat when you butcher.
Yeah, a lot of it's not real good for them. They have a harder time of digesting it. so they'll spend more energy digesting that than what they really should.
Okay.
And that those different meats seem to it. I think that's the main culprit for softening their meats. It kind of gives you more of a greasy, soft, buttery type of a meat, which isn't real desirable.
Sure. I was
And
just
as
curious.
far as health issues, I don't know if it's as big of an issue with the hogs, but I believe that it could be. That was, you remember back the mad cow
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
big craze that went on, that came back from feeding them meat. That was giving them meat, and I don't know if that can for sure happen with the IPPs or with any hog, but I'd rather not chance it.
Yeah.
I
Neither
agree.
do I.
I would think that would create more parasites possibly in them.
I think it would. Yeah.
So this question's for Aimee, actually. Why do pigs bark?
Because they're raised with dogs.
Exactly.
That's what I was worried about at first. I thought because our pig lives with my goats who think they're dogs and the dogs, so they all think they're dogs and they all try and come in the house. But Rob set me straight and he told me it's because they're happy. It's their happy noise.
So Steve, do you have a good scientific reason why pigs bark?
I think they're happy. Yeah, they're happy. They bark to warn each other. My boar, if something strange will come on the property, he'll chuff at it, and you know he's at attention and something's not right. Coyote wanders on and is very close, and you'll hear him out there chuffing, just growling and chuffing. And quite honestly, I'd hate to run into him in the dark when he didn't know who you were and was mad at you. He's about 400 pounds and he's got 3-inch long tusks. And I think if he didn't want to be gentle, he wouldn't. He would do you some damage.
So I got a question. How come my boar, and I'm not complaining really, doesn't seem to have the big tusks?
He will.
He will. Great.
At what age?
Yeah. So
let's see. Your Sparky's just what, a year and a half?
just turned a year. Just
a year. Okay. So give him another year. By 2 years, he's going to start developing the tusks.
Wow.
And they'll get there.
Yeah. I actually never really thought about it. I'm thinking, my boar, which is gorgeous. I have a gorgeous boar. I can't say enough about him, but he doesn't have the big tusks that I've seen on some of the older boars. But I didn't realize it was such an age thing.
Yeah, it's age. They get them when they get older. And you might want to start thinking now about how you're going to trim them when they do get a little older. They just keep growing. So they don't just grow so long and stop. They just keep growing. So when they get up 2-3 inches long, they're sharp and they can lay you right open with them. And usually not even being mean, not with the IPPs. They aren't mean when they do it. They're loving. They're trying to rub up against you, and they rub their head on you and cut your leg open. That actually happened to a friend of mine, Charlie Moore, with one of his pigs. In fact, the daddy of my boar did that to him and cut his leg open, and he was just rubbing on him. He wasn't trying to hurt him. He was just being friendly. So for our own safety and for those around us, we do need to kind of keep those trimmed if we can. And
so how do you trim a boar's teeth?
Well, there are several ideas out there, from getting them drunk and then doing it to putting them in a squeeze chute of some kind. Andrew Foster, who I mentioned earlier, he's built a chute to run them into, and then he picks it up with a tractor, and their feet hang out the bottom, and they can't go anywhere. And then you can do whatever you want with them. But they actually use like the little thumb saws that have like a cable saw. A lot of times they use those, and if you can get them, scratching them and get them standing there. I know a couple people that have just snuck in there and put that on and give it a couple quick saws back and forth, maybe 15 or 20, and knock those teeth right off. So,
Wow.
um,
Wouldn't
I've
that
heard of
cause
people.
like any dental problems or gum problems?
Are they like dogs? Do they have like dogs' claws? Do they have like veins going up in them
Not that I have
that
seen.
you have to watch out for?
um,
I think they're more like seals.
like a tusk. They're like an
Yeah,
elephant tusk or a seal
Mm.
tusk or something. They're like
and you
ivories.
can break them ones off.
All right, I
Yeah,
just
and,
learned.
yeah, and there are people that snap those off with a dehorning thing, but that shatters them when you do them that way, and I don't think
Yeah.
that's a good
That
way
would
of
hurt
doing it.
them.
I think it would. I wouldn't do that myself.
I would
But
cry.
it would
Wow.
fracture them, and I don't think that would be good for them.
Go for your question.
Oh, how are your predators out there?
Horrible.
That's what I figured.
Is that why you
are
have
out in the middle
mules?
of nowhere.
Yeah, we we moved in here, my neighbor says, I am so happy to have a neighbor out there. And he has property on both sides of us. And he says the coyotes are horrible. He says, do you shoot them? And so he says, you can use my property, you can hunt those things, whatever. He's had them actually jump right in his corral and kill 7 or 8 sheep right in his yard. So we did lose a couple of turkeys, and we lost 1 piglet.
Really?
And yep, it's the only thing I can figure is something jumped in there at night, took it, and left. I heard a commotion, and I got up the next morning, and I had piglets everywhere. They went right through the wires, and they went all over, and I rounded them all up, and I had 1 missing. But they did not want to go back in there. But I'm pretty sure that it was a coyote in the pen. But I also got my new fenced unit up, and it's 32 joule, and it will actually electrify 1,500 acres of wire. And so when it arcs, it'll arc about half an inch or better, and it cracks like lightning. I said, I'm scared of it. when we hooked it up about 2 o'clock in the morning, we did hear a coyote howl and yip and cry and run off, and I really haven't had much coyote problems since then. The pigs, they'll touch it once or twice, and I just turn it off after that. I don't need it on unless they start pushing on the fence, and then I'll turn it on, and I give them a little reminder, and they're off of it. They don't touch it. With my babies, it's too much for the babies. I don't want to use that on them, so I've got a smaller one that just will train them to electricity without hurting bad.
So before I don't get off the subject too much, but so I'm just going to put read off some bullet marks that have to do with winter, but and if you want to apply it to any other type of animal, go ahead. But so one of the things is we were talking about frozen water, but is there any health issues that are more prevalent in the winter for like pigs and any other livestock that you can think of that we should be keeping our eye on?
I actually think we have more health issue problems in the summer because of the heat. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, we have more problems with the heat, water, and contaminations, soil contaminations, fecal contaminations. In the winter when it's froze, you don't have the moisture for them to spread those diseases more often. So I think that's
what kind of contaminations are you talking about in the summer?
They get feces in the water, and you get they get the scours, and they get diarrhea, and the word that I'm trying to come up with, and I talked to Andrew about it today, and I can't even think of it now that I'm on camera.
Worse. Oh, worse.
But it's an issue. But it's mainly in the wallows. You get the baby piglets will go over to a mud hole in the summer when they're thirsty, and they'll drink out of anything, and they get a contamination.
The big ones do too.
Yeah, and they get the diarrhea too. That's one thing my new water system is going to have is a a separate little tank, little 15-gallon tank that I can put medication in and switch to that and run that through all of them for scours, diarrhea. And then I can switch back to the water. That way I don't have to put in so much medicine into a 275-gallon tank. I can do it in a 5-gallon batch and get everybody a drink of it.
Yeah. We talked about wind, trying to keep our animals out of the wind. And that's pretty much all we did this last winter was keep them out of the wind, give them lots of bedding.
Yep.
And I don't know, I think we touched on it a little bit, but do you change your formula of food at all in the winter as opposed to spring and summer?
Nope, not at all. I keep the same formula year round. If it's extremely cold, sometimes in February we'll get minus 20, minus 25 for a week or two. I may throw them a little extra grain, an extra pound of grain a day just to make sure they're warmer. If you wanted to change up and have a little more heat in your grain, I would throw in some more corn, some cracked corn. Corn is fat, corn is heat, and it warms them up pretty good. So you could increase your corn. If you're using if you find a grain mill that will mill your own batch and you're using what Jody and Dave use, you all know who Jody and Dave are. If I say that, the registry, the Idaho Pasture Pig Registry, White Bison Farms.
I know, but yeah.
Jody has a formula that she uses, and it's on the website. It's on the Facebook page, and it's on the registry site. That's mostly corn. It's like 1,100 pounds of corn in a ton. But they live back east in the Corn Belt, where corn's cheaper. I told her back here in Oregon, that would break us.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. I checked into it.
Yeah, we're wheat country back here, wheats and oats and barley. And I saw a question come by.
Chicken scratch for the corn in the chicken scratch.
And that's another thing you can do. I get the 2 grain chicken scratch, which is wheat and corn, and you can add that to your
grains.
Yeah, you can add that. Yeah, there are 2 grain, 3 grain, 4 grain, multiple grain chicken scratch, but the 2 grain I can get for $11.50 a 50-pound bag. Now on my breeders, when they're full grown, and I don't want to.
You're talking. I'm sorry. You're talking the grain or the scratch?
The scratch.
The chicken scratch. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can add with your breeders. You don't need the 18% all the time. You can actually get by with a little bit less. So if you wanted to stretch that out, you could use some of your chicken scratch, like your wheat and corn chicken scratch, mixed in not even amounts, but just a little bit, maybe 25 pounds to 100 pounds of your regular feed. But you can bring your costs down a little bit, and that's adding some more corn during the winter, which is going to be heat. So you can do that. I have found in the past, all of a sudden this last year, peas went skyrocketed high, but peas were cheap, and I did peas and barley, and I ground and mixed my own feed, and did well with that.
Do you ferment that?
What's that?
Did you ferment that as well?
I have, yes. I go back and forth on the fermenting. The fermenting is a wonderful thing, and I highly recommend it. And it's a pain in the neck at the same time.
Yeah, because I do that too.
Yeah. So I start out wanting to do it, and then I get to a point where I just don't want to anymore.
That it stinks.
Yeah.
What's big log?
I don't mind the smell of fermenting grain. But especially barley.
One of the things that we had a little bit of touched on the conversation before the show, and I thought it was quite interesting because everybody has different feelings about it, but I wanted to talk about fencing a little bit. For example, I'm just giving out people why we want to bring this up is I use right now nothing but Premier One fencing, which is a mobile fencing that I like because we're developing our paddocks. But other folks will use the hard fencing, like your your pig panels that can be 8 foot or 16 foot and usually 30 inches high. And then some folks don't use anything but just hot wire. And so we're talking to Steve, and you said you're using double wires and fencing also and chicken wire. Is that correct?
Yeah. When I get mine all done, my new layout, I will be using a New Zealand style fence. We'll have multiple electric fences, electric wires ran around the perimeter of it. And I will have in the middle of those, I will have some poly wire to separate between the pins, but my perimeter fence will be very stout. And a lot of that's for predator, to keep predators out, because they won't go through that with the charger that I have and wires that close together. The predators will stay out of my fences, and they can't jump. So that's how most of mine will be. A lot of my pins, I have pins down the middle of my outfit, and I use cattle panels, which are 50 inches tall. I've had with the hog panels that are 32 or 34 inches tall.
Yeah.
I've had them climb and look over them to meet me when I come down the alley with the feed. So a little taller fence, they don't seem to want to climb them as much. And then electric wire on the inside of those just to keep them in mind of what an electric fence is.
Well, since we do ours for like meat, our pigs are for meat. We don't go past 10 months. They're not going to get that much bigger where I'm going to have to worry about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I've got one sow every morning. She hears me come out of the house and she runs over to the corner and stands up on it's a 6 foot panel that's only 32 inches high, and that's the only one she stands on. And she's actually fallen out of her pen twice now. She wasn't trying to get out, but she was leaning so far over that she fell out of it.
And how often do you move your pigs around? Do you move them from paddock to paddock?
Yeah. Right now, with our situation, we've got our pens are about 100 by, what are they, 50 by 100, and they don't get moved a lot. I don't have grass to put them on, so right now they're getting fed, hay and grain.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of pasture. So yeah, all you can do is I try to have one extra paddock when I rotate them out, and then I lime my paddocks with like slaked lime or hydrated lime powder, and that sterilizes and kills off your bacteria that are in them. That was a conversation that Andrew Foster and I had this morning was that for heavy use on paddocks and pastures to keep your contaminants down.
Yeah, we had a problem with our last group because the livers were discolored.
Yeah.
And we didn't know about the 21-day cycle. And I think Caleb was the one that told us about that.
Yeah.
So now we're up to the 3 paddocks, and then Rob was nice enough to give us the lime. But yeah, I was just curious on how often you moved yours around.
Yeah, not as often as I would like, but like I said, we've just moved out here, and we're living in a 5th wheel trailer, and our pigs are living in their temporary shelters too. Once we get these, well, I'm doing half-acre paddocks is what they're going to have, nice. And I will try to have 3 of them for each pig, so they can be every quarter they can be moved to a different one.
Yeah. Yeah, right now ours are in the same one because we got Rob's littlest pig ever. And he's so small. He's only 2 weeks younger than the other ones we got from him, but he can go through anything. He is so tiny. He is growing though, Rob.
Yeah, well, it's really cute. We had this cute little pig that was a runt, and we called him Dinky. And of course, Debbie sees this as like, that thing's adorable. I want him. So I was going to give her to her. we ended up trading a refrigerator. So anyway, but she took this cutest little pig in the world, but definitely dinky. It was like
Oh my God, he's
1/3
so
the size
tiny.
of all my other pigs. My other pigs
Yeah.
are gorgeous, but I got this one small one, and
Yeah.
he was a tough little guy. Anyway, so but I was like, I was waiting to hear these stories of him slipping out of things that other pigs can't. But yeah, he was a cute little thing.
Good old
So
chicken wire keeps that little booger in.
Yeah.
He's a tough little guy. He is. He's in
He
there
had
with
to be.
Hulk. See, Hulk is another pig that we got from Rob, who acts like a dog. He'll run clear around the paddock and then come and sit right at your feet. And
Does he bark?
he has
Just
not,
about.
I have not heard him bark. But yeah,
Aimee
so
swears her pigs are barking.
They are.
Yeah, they will.
I
Mine
believe
bark
you,
too.
Aim. I had a dog that thought it was a ferret.
Oh,
He
wow.
ran like the ferret. Yeah. So I believe that your pig barks.
We have the most confused milk cow ever. She's just come back from a neighbor being bred, but she was raised with goats as a baby.
Oh.
She was in a pen with goats, and when she was 800 pounds, she's never lived with cows, but she would climb up on a gate like a goat would to look over the top, and she would stand up on her hind legs and cock her head like a goat to butt you, but she's 800 pounds. And
Oh, my word.
she actually hurt my wife pretty bad. And in fact, she's hoping to have some surgery here pretty soon and get her kind of fixed up. But
Oh, no.
and we got her, and I put her in with the mules. So she's been raised with goats and now mules. So she thought she was a mule for a while, and then we took her to the neighbors to get bred, and she figured out what cows were. So now she lays all by herself because she's got an identity crisis.
Yeah. What kind of cow is it?
Jersey.
Okay. I have a Jersey Angus.
Oh man. So when it comes to your sows, are you breeding or what's your goal of how many times you breed them in a year?
Well, preferably, if everything works out right, twice a year, a fall and a spring litter. But if their weights drop or whatever, I'll skip the fall litter. I've got the 2 sows that we had 3 litters in a row with them, and we gave them this fall off with the 2 of them. And I've actually, I have changed my, it's worth a worthy note, I think. I have changed my strategy a little bit on feeding my sows. You increase your amount of feed as per how many piglets in the litter. But I have started with this last sow, the one that I got from Jody, adding calf manna milk maker, just a little bit with her feed. And I've used to use that before. I've used that with the dairy cows, and I've used it with the beef cows and sheep and stuff, and it works wonderful. So I thought, why not for swine? They do actually make one for pigs, but we don't have it here in town. So I just buy the regular one, which it has recommendations for pigs on it. But I go by that. And this sow, we started giving it to her, and she was starting to look a little thin, and the pigs were pulling her down. And we started giving her that, and within 3 days, she went walking across the paddock to come over to get fed, and she was slinging milk from side to side.
Wow!
So when it says milk maker, it did.
Wow. Hey guys, I hate to tell you, but our hour is up, and we also are syndicated, so we always try to keep our time around an hour.
Right.
But Steve, now you've done a show with us and stuff. We'd like to have you back, once in a while. We won't terrorize you too much, but there is so much. It's like seems like every month comes along, it's like we have dozen more questions, and I just love the feedback between the different places of what they're doing to maintain their herds and stuff. So first of all, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight, and I hope you'll come back.
Oh, I'm sure I will. You got me in trouble, I'm sure, with Laura though, because she asked me to do a podcast, and I says, "Oh, I don't think I can." So,
Well, she's
now that
been
I've
invited
done
to
it,
do.
I'm gonna have to do more.
Well, I've actually asked you a few times too, and so this was
I
really
know.
to me very
You
special
really
to have
twisted
you
my
on.
arm
So.
this time.
But yeah, I really whined really good this time, so you felt really sorry for me. So, but yeah, I do appreciate it. So, guys, now Steve, don't hang up. We'll be going off the air, so just hang in there. But when we go here, but I want to thank the panel and everybody for being on the show. All of our guests chiming in on the discussion board has been great. And if you guys have any questions or any follow-up things that you think of, especially people who see this show after the live, write it down in the comments and we'll definitely address it in one of our other shows. So we appreciate it. So I want to once again thank everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you later, guys. So we'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
This video is made possible by RangerRob Poopy Bags, available in Amazon right now. Thank you very much for watching our video. Please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over the whole wide world. Thanks.